Alright homies, in this video I'm going to be breaking down to you guys how recoil works in Modern Warfare 3 and Warzone, and also how to make your guns pretty much have zero recoil across the board. Alright, so I'm in the firing range and I got the MW3. This is one of the best guns in Warzone right now. It's also pretty solid in Modern Warfare 3 multiplayer, but as you can see with this gun, it is a battle rifle, so it has a lot of recoil, but not something that's too hard to control. This is the base recoil of the gun right here. It has a lot of zigzag, but not that much vertical. And then at those really far ranges, I mean, if you're aiming right, you can still control it a little bit. You might have to tap fire, but I would say for medium and short range, you should be okay. But let's compare the base version to like a generic meta build of the gun. So here, we got the Bruin heavy support. Everybody's running that in Warzone. The VT7 suppressor to help out with the range, this clinch pro barrel which helps out with our recoil a little bit, adds a little more range too, and then obviously a 30 round mag. Now the one thing, I'm not going to run the 2.5 times scope because I want to show the visual recoil and just overall recoil a little bit better. With the 2.5, you pretty much have no recoil regardless of what gun you're using, unless it's something that, just kicks to the sky. But if we take this into the firing range, we can see just immediately that compared to the base version, this is way easier to control. It has a lot less side to side, and that's mostly because of the underbarrel. But besides that, at those really far ranges too, it's still not, an absolute laser beam, but it's a lot easier to control. And then especially if we're hitting chests and headshots, this thing's gonna just kill super fast also. And then here's the recoil plot for this version. You can see we have an initial bounce to the side, but after that, it pretty much goes up and to the right. If we shoot again, we might get something a little bit different. This one might have a little more bounce. That's just because every time you shoot a gun in Modern Warfare 3 and Warzone, it's gonna have slightly different recoil. For example, if I shoot for a third time right here, this one might look pretty similar to the first one, or just nothing near it at all and has way less vertical recoil. If I shoot for a fourth time, who knows, maybe this one has a little bit more? Yeah, so you can see where you might have random engagements and be like, oh, how did I not hit that guy? Or how did he just beam me like that? I know that gun doesn't have that much recoil. And you can see right here, just from 4 different versions, this being the first time, this being the second, this being the third, and this being the fourth, that our recoil is just all over the place. So when you're fighting somebody, you have to keep that into account. Maybe this first guy is an easy beam, not that much recoil. But the second guy, I have a little bit more recoil, so now I'm off target. And then this third guy, it's a lot more. So you just never really know. So how can we make this gun a lot more consistent and just take out a lot of that unpredictability from our gunfights? Well, for one, it starts with our pros and cons. If we take the Bruin heavy support underbarrel for example, this helps out with gun kick control, aiming idle sway, horizontal recoil, and firing aim stability, but it hurts our vertical recoil slightly. So what do all those things do? Gun kick control is kind of in the gray. It has a stat here, you can see how much is being helped or hurt, but there's not really a real explanation for what it does. Some people say it helps with like the bounce in between each shot, your visual recoil, a whole bunch of stuff. Everybody's just making assumptions. I would just say as a rule of thumb, if this is really high, it's probably going to be a little bit harder to control. If it's really low, it's probably going to be pretty easy. I mean, here's a quick comparison on gun kick. The base MW3 has recoil gun kick of 21.38 degrees per second. If we compare that to the Sidewinder, this has 36.47, so a 71% increase. And if you've used both guns, you can probably say that this one is a lot easier to control than this one. But what about aiming idle sway? Well, that is how much your scope or your reticle is gonna move or, sway around your screen as you're aiming down sights. Here's an MTZ built for the absolute worst aiming idle sway. Like every single attachment on this gun is hurting our aiming idle sway. You can see when we aim in, that blue dot is moving, and it's moving a lot. It's moving pretty fast. It's moving off target. And this here is going to be way harder to hit our shots, especially when that recoil comes in, because you can see, even though I'm tap firing, it's moving off target. But to compare, here's the meta version of the MW3. You can see here that that blue dot is moving a lot slower. It's not moving as much. And for the most part, it's staying on target. So even if I tap fire, it's probably gonna hit that guy 9 times out of 10. Besides if I get like a lot of horizontal recoil, for example. So that's why it's pretty important to watch what attachments you're putting on, because for example, a lot of people can see this rear grip and be like, ooh, it helps out with my gun kick control, my recoil control, and also my firing aim stability, which I'll get into in a second, but it's hurting my aiming idle sway. So if you put that on, you might actually be hurting more than it's helping. Now finally, let's get into firing aim stability. What this does is it basically reduces your overall visual recoil, and it can even help with your side-to-side recoil as well. So if you see this pro, use that attachment. It's gonna help out a ton, especially if you're a mouse and keyboard player, because you guys don't have aim assist like us controller players. So it's a lot harder for you guys when you have a ton of visual smoke and visual recoil and side-to-side bounce. It's going to be way harder to control a gun. So now let's completely switch up the build for this gun, and let's just max out firing aim stability. Just every single attachment is helping out. We got on this underbarrel to help. We got on the rear grip to help out twice as much. We also are going to be throwing on this stock, which helps out with your idle sway and your firing aim stability. And then even this barrel helps out as well. But where it really gets interesting is with this brand new optic. And this is by far, at least in my opinion, the best optic in the game, because not only does it have a blue dot, but helping with firing aim stability, making it have less visual recoil, is just a insane combo to have. So to compare again, this is the meta build. You can see, it doesn't have that much visual recoil. It has a little bit of side-to-side bounce, but overall, it's still pretty easy to use. But if we switch to a gun that has maxed out firing aim stability, you can see this gun has no recoil at all. There's no side-to-side bounce. The optic isn't moving. Like, all I have to do is pull down a little bit and all of my shots are gonna land. I could stand all the way back here and I can beam this guy if I actually had good aim and I was warmed up with ease. Even this guy beamed, this guy beamed, all headshots. So if you have firing aim stability maxed out, it's gonna make all of your guns super easy. So let's take a gun like the Sidewinder. As we compared earlier, this has a lot more kick than the MTZ762, and I mean, you can see it. Pretty much I can barely hit this middle guy, actually. And if I try to hit the guy all the way back here, yeah, nah, I can't do that. But now if we build it for recoil control and firing aim stability, that being my main focus, you can see here, this thing does not move, especially compared to the normal version. I mean, even if I take off the scope, let's just use the iron sights to keep it a little bit more fair, you can see this thing isn't really moving out much. In the firing range, it looks a little bit glitched. I don't know why my optics do it where it looks like it's like skipping frames or whatever. But you can see this is a lot more easier to control. And then if you wanted to, you could even go a step further. Let's say we're gonna take off this underbarrel and we can swap it out for the Jack BFB. This right here, I mean, if you can't control recoil with this, I'm gonna keep it real, this just might not be the game for you. This helps out with your gun kick by 55%, your horizontal by 20, your vertical by 35. It hurts the bullet velocity a little bit, but that's fine, because if we go in right here, I'm not even gonna control the recoil. I'm just gonna let it take care of itself. I don't even have to pull down. Even like, let's go even a step further. I'm gonna switch the mouse. I don't even use mouse and keyboard. It don't move. I've never used mouse and keyboard. I don't use mouse and keyboard at all. You can see right here, I mean, this is super easy, and the Sidewinder has the worst recoil probably in the game, at least horizontal wise and just controlling it overall, but it's absolutely nothing if you build it the right way. So let's show another gun. This is one of my personal favorites, the Ram 7. I absolutely love this gun. And this gun, when you build it right, it has basically no horizontal recoil. I don't even have this thing stacked with anything for firing aim stability. It's pretty much all horizontal recoil and gun kick control. You can see this thing's super easy to use. I even got the controller cam, showing how I'm pulling down barely, and I'm pretty much stopping 90% of that recoil. So now what I'm gonna do is turn down my sensitivity from 7.7 down to 3.3, just so that way I can show you guys a little bit more on how hard you really need to pull to control the recoil on these guns. You can see it's still barely anything. Now I also want to get into some settings. There's some things you can change here that can really affect how easy it is for you to control recoil. And I think that the number one most important is your dead zones. Now for me on controller, I make sure that my right stick, no matter what, even if I have drift, the minimum is 5 and the max is 99. Now if you have a lot of drift, obviously you might just want to get a new controller, but at the most I would probably bump this up to 10. I wouldn't go anything higher because it's going to make it a lot harder for you to adjust those like micro adjustments when you barely need to move to the left or the right to aim and really get on point. If I turn this up all the way to something ridiculous like 50, you're going to try to adjust on somebody, and this is me trying to be bad, but you're going to be all over the place. I mean, look at this. It's taking me 30 shots to kill one guy. But you also need to be careful of not turning this too low. If you have stick drift and you turn this all the way down to something like 0, you can see here, I'm not touching my right stick at all. Like I put my controller down on my desk and it's moving right now. And then just as important is your sensitivity. If you got this at something like 1111 or 2020, something ridiculous, or even if you have it too low all the way at like 3.3, it's going to be very hard for you to control your recoil. If that's what you're used to, keep it like that. Don't change it, get used to it. Me, I've been playing on 7.7 since like COD 4, so I run it like this. It's been working for me. Your ADS sensitivity multiplier is very important as well. If you have this at 1, your sensitivity, it's not going to slow down when you go in and aim, which is, it's up to personal preference. If you don't want it to slow down, you don't have to make it. But for me, I like to have it just a little bit slower just to make it so that way if I'm trying to do micro adjustments, it's not as hard. And then for mouse and keyboard players, you're just going to want to experiment a lot with these settings. Here at mine, I don't play mouse and keyboard often. I'm just nowhere near what I am on controller. But if you want, you can take mine, see how they work for you, or just keep using your own. It's whatever. But the most important thing for yourself is practice. If you're not playing the game that much, like if you're only playing like, 1 or 2 games a day, all of the recoil in this game is going to feel pretty hard to control. I mean, it's just that simple. I mean, I've barely played keyboard and mouse. I'm trying to learn it, as you can see right here. But I can still control the recoil on this gun pretty easy. I just can't actually hit my shots. So it just all depends, man. I mean, all it is practice. It's with everything in life. The more you cook, the better you get at cooking. The more you write, the better you get at writing. It's the same thing with video games. The more you play a game, the better you're gonna get. It's just that simple. I know for some people, they see streamers and content creators and just think, oh, everybody's cheating, everybody's got a Cronus, everybody's got all this stuff. To be honest, as somebody who's been playing Call of Duty over half their life, man, it's really not that hard. But if you need more help, this video here is all of my settings as a controller player on PC. Also, leave a comment if you need anything. I'll make sure to reply. And as always, make sure to drink some water. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.